Back here with our 1320 Kings Insider, creator of the Kings Beat, and one of the insiders on ESPN 1320, along with Kyle Matson, Monday through Friday, 10 to 12 p.m. Make sure you tap in. Hammer, I meant to ask, I didn't get a chance to ask you this morning. PSA for everybody listening. King season is upon us. Literally starts on Monday. Best content you can get covering the Sacramento Kings is over at the Kings Beat. Head over to thekingsbeat.com, become a premium subscriber. Obviously, the meat, if you will, pause. Obviously, the good stuff comes from your coverage of the Kings.
Mm-hmm.
The extra stuff is pretty damn good, too, and it's the happy hours. How did things go with Deuce and Mo last night?
Oh, I thought it was great. We had like 2 hours of just like they're so much fun. They're such a cool tandem. And like we talked a lot about a lot of different things. Like how much Morgan has to spend on like her rental company to get different outfits. And I shouldn't talk about things that were on the off the record with the
Off the
Kings Beat.
record, happy hour. Yeah. What was
Yeah,
the clever name for the happy hour? There's always a
it was off the record. Let's see, off the record with the Kings Beat virtual happy hour part 15, the tandem.
the
Yeah.
tandem. Okay.
Yeah, the
All right.
tandem. So it wasn't super long, but yeah, the happy hours are just such a special thing. And for whatever reason, they seem to strike a chord with people. Like it's such an inside look into the people that you watch on TV or listen to on the radio or podcasts. And I think the biggest thing, like we had this discussion, and it's something that I think we can like discuss is just like how there is so much room in this space for like who they are, who the King's Beat is, who like, you know, Matt George and the Locked On network.
Mhm.
Like there's so much space in the podcasting world, there's so much space in the Sacramento media market for all of us to do our different things. And like I've never felt like those guys were competition. I don't ever feel like Matt George is competition. We're all different, we're all unique, and we all get to live in the same space doing our own thing. Just like you and I have radio shows on the same station, but we're so different and we bring something, completely unique and separate. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I think it's cool. They're just good people. And, I fought for a long time to get Morgan on at NBC. And then by the time they finally said yes, they didn't need me anymore. So we never actually worked together, even though like I was like a big behind the scenes like driving force. Like, hey, this is a local talent that we need to get on the air. We need to develop local talent. We need to get someone like this who knows the game, who can do things on the network, that can be a presence and be positive and these things. And then by the time they hired her, they literally decided they didn't need to cover the team full time anymore. So yeah.
Well, NBC's loss is our gain. That's why James Ham has been with us for the last several years, and that's why the Insiders is the hottest new radio show here in Sacramento. I'm going to throw a kind of offbeat question at you because I feel we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, and I think you'll love it. But I think it was Utah is the latest team to offer a kind of their own like delivery of basketball, their delivery of their games. And I'm starting. I mean, for it's got to be like the last. But we got to be going on 2 years. We've been reading all of these doom and gloom stories about regional sports networks, and I'm not including NBC into this. I'm asking a very broad question here. How close are we to the end of regional sports networks? Do you think?
Oh man. I mean, like, look, I would say we're a lot closer than people want to think. So when I started at NBC, we did 1,500 pre and post game shows every year. And then that's because they had the Warriors pre and post game show, the Kings pre and post game, the Sharks, the A's, the Giants, but also 49ers and Raiders.
Mm-hmm.
The Raiders have left town. So that's, I I don't know, 32 pre and post game shows. So it's not like that big of an impact. But if the A's leave town, Like people think, oh, well, not that many people watch the A's anyways, but they do. And it's not always about how many people are watching. It's about how much inventory you have to sell
Mhm.
as a network to advertisers in order to make your money. And I think it's something that like I've brought up in the past when it comes to the Kings. So for years the Kings had one of the worst television deals that there was, right? It was one of the lowest dollar totals. They were making like 11 or 12 million dollars a year. But the Kings were also the last true in-house television broadcast. So everyone that worked on the broadcast, like the core, worked for the Kings, even if they had, like camera guys and stuff that worked for an outside company. The team actually produced the broadcast, and they had control over all of their inventory, all of their ad space, and all that stuff. Well, when they went to NBC, which was actually it was CSN, Comcast Sportsnet, um, years ago, like right after the sale of the team. It switched over to where they handed all of that over to Comcast,
Mhm.
which is again Comcast, NBC. It's the same company. For people who don't know that, they are the same company. They're just rebranded with NBC. Um, so anyway, when they made this transaction, the price went from like 11 or 12 million dollars a year to like 30 to 35 million dollars a year for the television rights.
So can I
And that's
add something to that? Because I want people to
yeah.
understand what you're saying. And I'll use an example that I
Mhm.
know. Everybody remembers House Party Live, Jim Cozumort, Carol Lawson. They worked for the Sacramento Kings. That's who their paycheck came from. It came from the Sacramento Kings. When this deal was done, now those two had been gone at this point, but the way things are done now, those Morgan Reagan, perfect example. They're NBC Sports California.
Yeah.
They're not
It,
paid
it,
by the Kings. It's a completely different setup than it used to be.
well, that and it's very unique too because like the Kings pay for their broadcast team, but NBC pays for the pre and post game and halftime. They pay for whoever it is that's the host, the analyst. Well, and that's all they have now: the host and the analyst. Right? It used to be a three-man team, and or close to a three-man team. It just depended on the night how much I was on the air as like the third guy. So all of these roles, and I make sure everyone understands like I joke about not getting to work with Morgan, but Morgan getting hired by NBC has nothing to do with James not working at NBC at
Mhm.
all. Like they decided they weren't going to cover the team on a daily basis. And so they don't now have that role that I've filled forever, which was the third man on the broadcast, which is the guy who actually knows what's happening on the ground every day. So you have your host who is setting people up and asking questions and reading ad copy and directing the show. You have your analyst, which is always a former NBA player if they can get one that works that job. And then there used to be this other role, which I was the insider, which is I'm the guy who's there interviewing the coaches, going in the locker room, adding this different element to the broadcast. They don't do that anymore. So. And also when they sold to NBC, basically they sold their television rights. All of the commercial space went to NBC. They now have all the Kings inventory, which used to be owned by them. And so that's how you get this gigantic jump in value from like 11 or 12 million bucks to 30 to 35 million. That 30 to 35 million, NBC now gets to sell all the television commercial space for the game. And that has a tremendous amount of value. So it's just kind of like an interesting way that the Kings have handed it over. Now, RSNs are dying, and they're dying left and right, and it's like at alarming pace. You look
Mhm.
around the league, and there's also this like really really strange thing that there because of monopoly laws and antitrust laws in the United States, like NBC was not able to go buy like the Bally Sports guys or Fox when Fox Sports bought a bunch of RSNs. NBC wasn't allowed to do that because then you would have too much monopoly space. And so I think that that's weakened. Like if we had one network that carried almost every sport around, I think it would probably be pretty strong. But then you would, of course, have like one company controlling all the information and all of like what game is on what night and everything else. So yeah, I don't think that they're super strong. And I think when you start losing teams like NBC Sports Bay Area, California has, it hurts. But they are a pretty thriving business. They are NBC, but that doesn't mean that they could afford to pay a one person salary to cover a team full time anymore.
Yeah.
And that should tell you that like it's not the greatest thing that's what's happening to them.
Yeah, I stumbled across something, and forgive me for not remembering like the exact specifics, but it was about Diamond Sports, and it was about a particular team on one of their networks making a contingency plan if something were to happen. And I feel like we've read that a lot about teams making plans in case something goes wrong with their regional sports networks. And I kept looking at it like at some point they're going to get tired of making two plans. Now, I understand there's money involved, but they're going to get tired of, okay, this is what we're going to do. But just in case, let's build out a plan over here that takes care of it in case it all falls through. Like, I think teams are going to get tired of doing that, and distributing the games themselves, I think, will start to become a more likely thing. Not just distributing the games themselves, but distributing through platforms that they own.
Yeah, I mean this discussion started with the Phoenix Suns who are sending out HD antennas to people's homes,
Yeah.
and now it's gone to the Utah Jazz who they've decided to do like an entire season for what, like $16 a month.
Mhm.
So you can buy an individual package, but you also have to remember that the NBA controls, like, it's really weird what they do uh with like the Kings can't, their games stop playing at like Vallejo. Like if you're on one side of Vallejo, you get the Kings games. If you're on the other side of Vallejo, you get the Warriors games. So there's like this 90-mile radius that they put around their teams. Anytime that you like work a deal with the Kings to like promote their products, you can only go out like 90 miles. You have to geo track everything that you do with them, and then they want to see the geo tracking afterwards. It's almost like it's very complicated and it's almost not worth it. And I think at some point, like some of that stuff has to go away, and you just have to open it up and allow for something like the NBA package to be more powerful than it is now, where everyone can watch everything, and you're selling your platform at a premium, and then you have your sponsorships and you're selling whatever it is, like the new television deal, the national television deal for the NBA is going to be massive. I think the last
Yeah.
one was 9 billion. Like the next one is going to be like so much more than that. It's ridiculous. And
And
especially
Adam
with,
Silver has been adamant, James. Sorry. Adam Silver has been adamant, regularly saying we're going to approach this in a different way. There's going to be some different things in this media rights deal that we haven't seen before. Like he's not saying there might be, he's not saying we're exploring different ideas. He's flat out said on multiple occasions, there's going to be a unique component to this deal we're going to do.
yeah, and what he's saying basically is there's going to be an Amazon Prime, or there's going to be somebody who steps in who has some sort of ownership, an Apple TV who has some sort of ownership of their product that is not mainstream. And in order to get those games and to be part of that world, you're going to have a subscription to something else.
Yeah.
It's not going to be your standard television subscription. And like I know for a lot of people out there, this is like, it's nuanced and it might be even like boring, but you have to remember that like a team like the Warriors have 44 nationally televised games. There's a certain amount of games that can, if you have an RSN package, I think they have to get up to like 72 games, something like that. Or maybe it's in the 60s, but they have to actually show a certain amount of games as well. And
Mhm.
that's why we ran into that at the bubble, why the number was 72. because if he got to 72, if the NBA had a lockout or for some reason stopped, they had to show at least 72 games or they would have to pay their RSNs back money. And that's why we had the 8 games in the bubble.
Mhm.
It was a very specific number to get every team to 72. And
And that's
so,
why it was 72 the next year when the season started in like December or something, or
yeah,
whatever month it started in. That's why.
exactly. And if we go back to the lockouts, they're usually like, I think one was 66 games and one, but those are like rare instances and you have to pay a lot of money back. This is a lot of money per game. And it's why I know Kings fans always get upset. And when I was at NBC, I had to like manage this traffic all the time of people
Mhm.
getting angry because you couldn't get your preseason games. And all of a sudden this year, like I think 3 of the games are on national TV, 3 of
Yeah.
the preseason games, but those games, they cost a lot of money. They're 6 figures per game, and the NBA doesn't care if it's preseason or regular season, you're still paying the same for the rights, and so unless you're a team that can go out and sell that or a RSN that can go out and sell that package to somebody for a preseason game, you're just not gonna get them. It's not worth it, at the end of the day, dollars and cents wise, to make that, to do that.
You're listening to D'Lo and Casey on KIFM West Sacramento 98.5 FM KRX QHD2 Sacramento ESPN 1320. Always live on the free Odyssey app and live with my main man, James Ham, kind enough to join me for the final hour of this show, for the final hour of this week. We'll leave the money business stuff here. I find so much of this intriguing, though. We know what an impact, most of us, I think, know what an impact 2020 and 2021 had on the Sacramento Kings. Do you know how much of that was able to turn around last year with one, the season that they had, and more specifically, I used to get told this about the Sacramento Monarchs. Like the Sacramento Monarchs do fine, but they really don't make money until they get to the playoffs. And obviously, the Kings were able to host 4 games against the Golden State Warriors in the playoffs. Have they pretty much been able to get kind of back on their feet since those 2 years really took a toll on everyone's business?
Yeah, I'm not sure that like those that 1 year can fix what happened during the pandemic. Like I know like 2 months into the pandemic, the Kings had already lost over $100 million. Like just it is what it is. They lost so much money, it was crazy. And that's because they had to cancel all of the concerts, all of the events, all of
Mhm.
everything moving forward. And then they weren't able to do any of those things. So, it's one thing when you're a team that's already sold all of your ad space on television to somebody else, right? So this plays into a bigger conversation when NBC has all of your ad space for games and they own that. What do you do when there's no one in your building? Because everyone goes into the arena and you see the banners going across all over the arena that has, whether it's a place like Sky River or it's a
Yeah.
place like the Sacramento Bee or it's a place like, one of the Toyota
Dixie
dealers or
Little.
whatever. Like all of those banners placements and stuff, they only work when you have fans in the building.
Yep.
When you don't have fans in the building who are eating and drinking and paying a toll to get in the door, that's one thing, but just the ads and all that stuff, you lost all this inventory, so it was a lot. I mean, the Kings, like, it's a scramble, so even if you were able to get games back on TV and stuff, you're still losing, tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars in all this ever other revenue that you've become reliant on, so I think they're probably doing okay right now. I know Vivek has always done well in his other investments outside of the Sacramento Kings. And what they've done downtown and everything else has been really amazing. And the way that they've built everything up and how they've fulfilled the promises. And on a totally weird side note, Damien, on the happy hour last night, Steve Cohen dropped by, city councilman,
Okay.
and he's a fan and he's part of the Kings beat, which I didn't know. He sent me an email earlier in the day, and I didn't even put two and two together that it was that Steve Cohen. He came on and, he actually raised his hand and, like, talked to us at the end. It was really interesting because he's like, yeah, the owner has fulfilled everything. Like everything that he promised, he's done. And the fact that they've become so successful, like the city of Sacramento, it's not a burden. They have not hurt the city. They have not hurt the general fund. They have not done some of the things that people had predicted. And that's even with a global pandemic that wiped out the entire downtown area. And that's even with like this parking mechanism in place that we always it was such a big deal during the relocation saga and during the build out process. Well, there is no longer a parking issue in downtown Sacramento because so many people are working remotely. And that was part of how you were going to pay for everything. But it doesn't matter. They've been able to be successful without all of these things like tripping them up, which is really surprising.
James, I was so proud of you this morning as I was out in South Sacramento at Cricket Wireless with WWE superstar Charlotte Flair. I looked down at my phone and saw, oh, James got some Kings news, and I saw James is on the air. James has got news about the Kings while he's on the air. I love this new partnership we have. I love that you're on the air at 10 o'clock, and I love that you can bring us NBA news like the Dame Lillard trade, or like what you brought us this morning. What did we learn about the Sacramento Kings and their upcoming training camp?
Yeah, this was interesting too. I got a text while we were going to break, and it was like, "Hey, you're going to break. Do you have a second?" And I said, "Yeah." So I had to mute the mics and stand up and take a call to confirm. I had heard this news yesterday, but it was something that I couldn't go with until today. But yeah, the Sacramento Kings they filled out the number 20 and number 21 spot on the roster heading into training camp. And they've brought in Jalen Noel and Jeremy Lamb. Jeremy Lamb, of course, was acquired along with Demonis Sabonis and Justin Holiday for Buddy Hield and Tyrese Halliburton. Um, and then he sat out last season, which I'm not sure why that he couldn't find a job because I was really impressed with him when he came over from Indiana. I just thought he had way more game than I thought he did. He was a good passer. He's a good creator. He was a good rebounder, and there were moments where he played really solid defense. Like he's always been known as a scorer, and so he's in camp. We're talking about 31-year-old, 6'6", 2'3". Whether he has a shot to make the team or not, that's kind of a coin flip. But I would say that Jalen Noel is a little bit more intriguing. 24-year-old guy that played 65 games last year for the Minnesota Timberwolves, averaged 10.8 points, and played like I think it's over 19 minutes a game. Sort of a gritty 3-point. Defensive player. He struggled with his 3-point shot last year, but the year before shot like 39% from three. Solid role player that actually makes a lot of sense for the Kings if they hadn't made some of the other moves they've done this offseason. So I think he's probably vying for the final roster spot. Maybe Lamb would have an outside shot as well. Yeah, like just two guys to throw on at the end. I was surprised that Noel was available. Totally. We're talking about a guy who played legitimate minutes on a playoff team last year, and just was available the week before the season started.
So you talk training camp spots there, Hammer. There's one guaranteed roster spot position left, correct?
Yeah, I mean, technically speaking, the Kings have 14 on the main roster. They have their two ways, so that puts them at 17. And then they brought in Deontay Burton, Chance Comanche, and now Noel and Lamb, and so you're up to 21 players. You can carry up to 21 until the day before the season starts. And we don't know again how long these guys will make it through camp or not. Like there's a possibility that you get through the first like 5 days of camp and they trim down the roster a little bit before they start preseason. But these are also like they're guys who have a shot, right? Like
Mhm.
everybody has a shot. You show up and you prove that you can do something different and add something that they don't have that your team doesn't have. And I really do think that like it adds an element. But I wouldn't be surprised if the Kings walked into the season with only 14 standard roster spots.
Mhm.
Yeah, so we have 4 guys vying for 1 roster spot, but I also could understand if the Kings walked into the season with 14 because there is an advantage to that. There is like the ability to do like the Kessler Edwards trade last year where the Kings picked up I think 2 second round picks and Kessler Edwards for nothing just to take him into space to save the Brooklyn Nets money. And I could see the Kings like relying on that again. I could also like one of these players might not make a lot of guaranteed money, and the money wouldn't be fully guaranteed until like January 10th. So
Mm.
if you like one of these players and you say, you know what, let's just keep them on the roster, and the sort of the guarantees are at a minimum going into the regular season, maybe somebody makes a team, but with the understanding that they're on a non-guaranteed contract that could be waived at any time.
I like Jeremy Lamb. I thought he I thought he played I thought he had some moments. I mean, it's always tough to judge when you're watching players on a bad Sacramento Kings team. Like, but I always thought Jeremy Lamb was a solid ball player. I'm surprised he's getting like training camp invites and then on a roster. But we talk about our man Terrence Davis. Like Terrence Davis is probably going to get a training camp invite. Like if he hasn't already gotten one, that's probably what he's looking at is a training camp invite. Because for some reason my man isn't on a roster. But I think he's a good ball player.
Yeah, and you know what?
Both
Like
of them are.
I think that's one of the questions that people have. Like, why would they not just bring back Terrence Davis? And him and all that stuff. And I'll say this: a couple of things. Number one, I don't think Terrence Davis, like while he's in Sacramento, ever did anything wrong that would make the Kings not want to bring him back. Right?
Mhm.
He was a good teammate. He's a good spirit, a nice guy to have in the locker room, and all that stuff.
Yep.
But you also know who he is and what he does and what his limitations are. And the Kings are uniquely positioned where they know more about him than anyone else does, right? It doesn't matter how long I've covered this team. The team itself knows more about each of their players than I ever will. That's just the nature of the beast. They're employees of the team. They see what a guy, how he acts on a plane and how he acts in a hotel room and how he acts, on the road or during events. Like, and this isn't to say that there was ever anything wrong with Terrence Davis, but it is to say that the team at a certain point gets to somewhere with a player where they go, we know who they are and we know what they bring, and we want to try something different than what they're bringing. And that's what I think, maybe a Jeremy Lamb or maybe a Noel can bring to the table. Or maybe they can't. And maybe the Kings just walk into the season with that open roster spot. But that shouldn't be a knock on Terrence, and it shouldn't be a knock on the Kings for also not bringing him back because, we always get this every single time the Kings have a roster spot. I get hit with like the
Eric
same
Giles.
15 people. No, it's always DeMarcus Cousins.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it's
Well,
like, look, the Kings are uniquely qualified to understand what that means, and they say no. And that's the end of the
I
discussion.
want to make sure we make the distinction too between like DeMarcus and Terrence. Terrence probably
Oh,
just as much as you know what you talk about, what he is, what he brings on the basketball floor. And clearly there were things that Mike would really be frustrated with Terrence Davis to the point where he's either correcting him on the floor or he's not playing him. And for us, a lot of times we'd see, and that's why I always remind people there's so much we don't see Monday through Friday before, you know, from 10 a.m. to, 1:30 p.m. or whenever they're done practicing. Like there's so much we don't see and so much more of what these coaches decide with 12, 13, 14, 15 man on the roster is decided then rather than a momentous night at the Golden One Center on national television. I hate it because I do like Terrence Davis a lot, personally and professionally. But I also like if you're gonna go with a guy who's on and off on the offensive end, but if you could find someone who is a little bit more solid on the defensive end more consistently, maybe that's what Mike is looking for this time around for a player who would be in that rotation spot.
yeah, I got a couple of things here. First up, European soccer. I've got into it a lot heavier this last season. It's really weird because, like, you'll have a guy like, Eric Ten Hag, who's the manager, the coach for, Man U. He just flat out comes out and says, like, "Jadon Sancho wasn't good in practice this week, and his fitness level is a question, and so he's not gonna be on the active roster this weekend." And then Sancho's like, "What the? Like, who the? Like, what are you talking about? Like, what? I've showed up every day. Like, well, all right. Well, like there's a bus that's driving by and a coach is allowed to just push a guy right out in front of that bus and watch him get run over.
Mm,
And then the player is able to get up, dust himself off, and then get himself in more trouble by throwing the coach under the bus. Like afterwards, like there's this weirdness. We don't have that here in the NBA. Every once in a while you get some player who gets kicked out of practice for being a distraction, blah blah blah. But that's like super, super rare. That's not super rare in European soccer.
you get
The other,
general managers kicked out of practice too for being a distraction, but that's probably
oh,
a different
yeah,
story.
I was there for that. I was there for that. Like, hey, we're not practicing anymore until he's gone. That was a shoot around. That was a
Oh,
shoot
shoot
around.
around. Sorry, shoot
Well,
around.
that and he was told he was not allowed at a practice or a shoot around, and then he showed up to shoot around, and a shoot around
It went
stopped
well. Yeah, it went really well.
until bro left the room, and he didn't want to leave the room, so shoot around stopped. Like, all right.
That's
Yeah,
amazing.
that was amazing. I don't know what you're talking about, but that was amazing.
If we're
Uh,
not talking about Wes Wilcox or Monty McNair,
no, no, not at all. The not it
Puffy
definitely was
Vest
not
crew.
those guys. Yeah, so the other point I would make too is that, like, Terrence Davis, it was like a French rotational player for the Sacramento Kings last year. There's no chance on this current roster that he would be a French rotational player. And
Yeah.
so to bring him back is almost disrespectful. It's to say, like, you might be 9, 10, 11, but all we have on our roster is 15. So you can come back and be 15. And I don't know if they asked him this or not, but this would be how the conversation would basically go. You could come back, but we already filled your spot with Chris Duarte, and we plan on giving Davion maybe a few more minutes. And Malik Monk took this monstrous step in postseason. And so you're probably going to be number 14 or 15 on the roster. And if that's okay with you, if you want to compete with Kessler Edwards and Colby Jones and maybe Alex Len for minutes, then there's a possibility. But outside of that, we think it's probably in your best interest as a player to go out and find something that suits your who you are better. And that role might not be there today for Terrence Davis, but it could very well be there, mid-season or like if there was an injury or something on a different team. And I just like the opportunity wasn't going to be there in Sacramento. He was completely buried on the bench and there was no way to get around that.
Shout out TD. Just celebrated his 1 year anniversary with his wife. It doesn't look like he's been picked up anywhere. I feel like I would have seen if he had, but I did just check to make sure, and it doesn't look like he has a training camp roster spot.
Yeah, I haven't heard it, and I would be surprised though if like this weekend we didn't hear something like, "Hey, like come and join somebody real quick," or even if he's got to go into the G League draft and he'll be the first pick in the G League draft and like go play for the G League and then earn your way up back up to the league that way. That's always a possibility.
Yeah, there's some good stuff ahead for Terrence Davis, just as there's some really good stuff ahead for the Sacramento Kings with Media Day getting underway on Monday. James Ham will be there. We'll have quite a bit of coverage for Media Day. Of course, with James, we'll have coverage of Media Day throughout the week. It's one of the unique abilities we have here at ESPN 1320 is Media Day isn't a week for us or isn't a day for us. It might be a whole week, but we'll explain all of that on Monday. But James will be live at Media Day as it doesn't get underway until after the Insiders ends. James got it's the Insiders like superstar edition, as it's as we talked about earlier. Kyle Matson's out of town next week, which was always a unique component to adding the Insiders when we did, is we knew that James was going on a cruise. We knew that Kenny was going on a honeymoon, and we knew that Kyle was going to the Florida Keys, all in consecutive order. And our thing was, who cares? Just start the show. We'll figure it all out later. And James has figured it out. Sean Cunningham, likely to be with James next week. Joe Davidson, Jerry Reynolds coming to hang out with James Ham next week. And our man Jake Gaden coming to hang out as well. So it's a superstar edition of the Insiders next week.
James's friend, which we had not announced until right then who was going to be on. So Damien just broke news.
Sources close to.
Hopefully everyone shows up. If they don't show up, blame Damien. If not, it will be Damien instead of one of those people who are on the Insiders.
See, I one, didn't realize the news hadn't been broken. Two, that just means I have to fill in for somebody if they're not available. But it is a superstar edition, and I'm confident all of those guys will be here. No way Jake Gaden is going to turn down an opportunity to talk sports for 2 hours. No way Jerry Reynolds is going to turn down an opportunity to come hang out with his good friend James Ham for a little bit. Talks, and that's the other fun component to all of this is Kings basketball starts next week. So James will be unplugging his headphones, grabbing his computer, and running out the door every day at 12 to get to practice.
Yeah, it's going to be wild. I wish I wasn't coming into it exhausted. That's usually a bad sign when you're coming into the season exhausted. But sometimes you got to go on a cruise. Sometimes it just happens that way. And like when I said yes to a cruise, and yes, the weekend before to going to Vegas, I did not know that I would have a new commitment Monday through Friday from 10 to noon every single day. So there's going to be a lot of driving, but it's okay. Like this is kind of it's just a natural progression of what I do, and I'll miss some shoot arounds, but outside of that, I'll be able to do everything that I've always done covering this team, and you'll still get 6 quick thoughts and all the access that we can provide.
Very good stuff, man. And you didn't know when you booked the trip to Las Vegas that Ed Sheeran was going to cancel 15 minutes before the show.
He's going to flake. He's going to pull like a Lionel Messi and just not be there. Yeah.
And you didn't even get to shake his hand.
No.
I heard he went and shook people's hands who were on the floor part of it, like the people who were in the arena, and they wanted him, he wanted to go say something. He wanted to speak, and they were like, no, you can't. The problem's the stage. The stage might collapse if you speak. Don't go speak. So he walked down, and I guess he tried to greet as many people as he could that had those floor seats. So James didn't know that prior to going to Las Vegas.
No, I did not know that we would be having a very expensive dinner across the street and then have our waiter tell us that Ed Sheeran had just canceled. Yeah. At 6:30.
Waiter comes over. Hey, I hope you guys aren't going to the Ed Sheeran show because he's not.
Yeah, everyone in the room goes, what? Oh, come on now. And no, I won't have another $27 drink.
Oh, man. Oh, they get you. They get you down there. So you didn't even get into the stadium.
Oh, no. So
there's a bunch of people. You haven't seen Allegiant Stadium yet, have you?
No. I saw the outside of it because I was across the street. Yeah. No, I've seen the outside. And it's funny you say
look, it's Big Ben. I thought James would find that funny.
I know exactly what that is. That is European Vacation.
Yes,
that's
it is.
Chevy Chase. It's funny. When I went to Alaska, we flew to Seattle, then went out of port there in Seattle through the Puget Sound, and I actually drove by the two the Seahawks and the Mariners stadiums, which are right next to the freeway, and it was exactly that. Hey, look, kids, there's Big Ben. Yeah, we just kept driving
in the circle and point it out again.
Yeah, just get off the freeway, go back. Hey, look, kids, there's Big Ben.
It's the only line I remember from that movie. Kyle Shanahan says Brandon Ayuk had a really good week. Yeah, he's good to go. He is off the injury report, and he's excited to have him back. So Brandon Ayuk will be back, and we'll be watching for word on Debo Samuel. We'll talk a little football. We'll continue to talk Kings basketball, of course, but we'll talk a little football with James Ham, Wendy and KC. Return here on Sacramento Sports Leader ESPN 1320. Oh, man. TLC flaked on you twice, Katrina. That's crazy.
Oh,
That is crazy. Like the real TLC or the pretend one?
like with Left Eye?
Yeah, like that's what I mean. Like the real one, or like I don't know how old Katrina and Ramsey are. So I'm trying to figure because Left Eye passed away. That was a long time ago that Left Eye
It's
passed
20
away.
years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, Andre Rison's lady.
Well,
Or was.
one of the most famous covers of I think it was Vibe magazine when TLC posed on the cover with firefighter uniforms on.
Oh,
Yeah.
all right.
It's one of it's there's a handful there's probably 3 covers that you could point to that like really set Vibe magazine off, and that was one of them.
Here we are having a TLC conversation, and people are calling it, are saying that I don't know who they are. Yes,
You just said Left Eye. Of course you know who they are.
I said I like. Come on now, people.
Oh, Michigan. Buddy, I'm not torn. Janet's going to be there Friday. The Kings will be there Sunday. I'll see
Oh,
you on Sunday.
okay.
Yeah, Janet's at the venue on that Friday night.
At Golden One.
No, the venue at
Oh,
thank you.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
Thunder Valley.
Rockland. Yeah.
Oh, got it.
Thunder Valley. Yeah.
Oh yeah, Gwen Stefani's there too. Like,
I saw a billboard for that and I kind of was like, I think I'd see her. I
oh,
think
I've
I'd
seen
I
her.
think I'd do
She's
that.
spectacular. Yeah, I
Yeah,
saw her, no
she's
doubt, opened for U2 years ago, and then I've seen her. That's a big. The wife is a big Gwen Stefani fan, so
yeah.
I've seen her a few times. She's seen her a couple other times too. And then Janet, my wife was her aunt was married to a guy who just passed away last year. He used to train Janet Jackson. So Janet Jackson was
Wow.
at their wedding, and my wife got to hang out with Janet Jackson when she was young.
Oh, that is spectacular.
Yeah.
That is spectacular. Ooh, California. Okay. So I guess I'm talking Tupac at 450.
Yeah, Katrina says the tickets for Gwen Stefani are super steep. Everything is steep there.
Everything. Yeah.
Yeah, like that's a
Everything's expensive.
like for a couple, that's a $800 to $1,000 night out.
We
Like
got a little
bare minimum.
insight as to like they're paying big bucks for those artists. And
And
they're
it's a small venue, right?
yeah.
5,000?
Yeah, that's why they're expensive. They're paying big bucks for those artists, but and I know this is such a like cliche line, but there really isn't a bad seat there.
Yeah, that's kind of what we did with when we saw Gaga. That was at that small venue,
Mm.
like 6,000 seat thing in Vegas,
What
and there's
hotel was
not a
that?
bad seat. Oh, it's at the MGM, but
Oh, nice.
there's like 3 different MGMs, and we actually went to the wrong MGM first and then had to scurry over to the other one. That wasn't fun.
Oh, like there's multiple MGMs inside the MGM, or there's multiple MGMs on the strip.
There's multiple MGMs on the strip.
Oh man,
Yeah. So,
I don't think I knew that.
yeah, okay, so you bring up Katrina, you bring up Bruno Mars, but Bruno Mars opened that place. That's why that was so expensive. That's like when
Hmm.
we paid out, like it was expensive to see
I,
McCartney
I
to
heard a
open.
I heard a I heard a number for Bruno. I don't know if it's true or not.
Oh, really?
I heard it was 2 for that show.
Hmm. That's what he
Heard-
made?
Yeah,
Whew.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. That's what I heard. That they asked him and he originally said no, and they were like, "Okay, we've got 2 million for this," and he was like, "All right."
Wow.
That's funny. Gwen Stefani news article just popped up on my phone.
Yeah, I wonder how that happened.
Gwen gets candid about her new chapter with Blake Shelton. We're back, Hammer.
Bro.
Jesse low-key a smartass, man. It's funny. Jesse just being there working, not doing anything, and then he'll just chime in like in my ear with something that makes me laugh. I love you, Jesse. Jesse is the man.
We got a good team here.
We do. We got a good group of people here. That's for sure. That is for sure. Is James Ham kind enough to join me in close out this week as we head into Media Day and the first Sacramento Kings practice. Media Day coming up on Monday. First Sacramento Kings practice coming up on Tuesday. And, of course, week 4 of the NFL season got underway last night with the Green Bay Packers, taking an ass whooping at the hands of the Detroit Lions. I don't know how that game got out of control quick. I was just minding my business, doing my little radio show on 102.5, 3-0 Packers, feeling good about my Jordan love, if you will. And then all of a sudden it was 24-3. Like, what the hell is going on here? And it didn't feel like the Packers had a lot of life, man. But there was a lot of hype around the Detroit Lions entering this year. And they look good. They look good.
They did. There's a couple of things from this game that like stood out. Number one, it took all of like one game for everyone in the league to say, "Oh, the Packers have done it again. They got the third straight home run." Okay, doesn't look great to me. Like I'm sitting here going, how does Brock Purdy get called Brock Turdy? And this
Oh, my.
guy is out there, yeah, like he can't be a good player because his name is too close to Brock Turdy. Thanks, Mike Florio. I'm not quite sure what that was all about, but that's what people are saying about Brock Purdy, while Jordan Love goes out and really doesn't look great. He's, he's completed like less than 50% of his passes in a couple of games, a couple of picks. Like, just he's been okay, but not great. And then the other thing is, we have this whole thing where running backs are just getting run over in the league, right? They're all getting used up and thrown away early. And I kind of I don't know if it's weird for me to take offense for a player, but I kind of took offense for David Montgomery, that they're out there running him 32 carries and then another 2 pass completions. And
Yeah.
he's averaging 3.8 yards per carry, but you're just going to keep plowing him forward.
Give him the
And
ball.
what it looks like to me is like, hey, let's use this guy up and throw him away midway through the season, and we'll have our young guy take over. That's what it feels like. Like,
Look
oh,
at
this
you.
doesn't.
Look at you thinking like a NFL general manager.
That feels dirty, man. Like, you don't run a dude in today's modern NBA, NFL. You don't run a dude 32 carries, another 2 passes. Like, what is happening? It's too
No.
much.
I think that's the strategy with running backs moving forward is you're going to get everything you can out of them, and then that's it. Yep.
Flush him down the toilet.
Yep. That's it. I mean,
Yeah.
and I guarantee you, no one will publicly say this. There's plenty of general managers and probably 32 owners that are thrilled that Saquon got hurt and is missing time, and that Josh Jacobs, 3 weeks into the season, stinks.
Not good.
This does not. Who's next? They were just, I can't remember who it was, but I know they were talking to him before the season. Might have been Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb might have been the one who's next. Now, obviously, he's hurt. He's in a whole different, upsetting circumstance. But the next running back, this is your future. You're going to fight for a contract. You're not going to get. You're going to have to hold out. It's not going to go well for you. And this is the running back position. And just as you said, they're just going to replace you with the younger guy they got in the 3rd round of the draft or the 4th round of the draft or the 5th round of the draft.
Even with them, it's the guy they picked with the number 12 pick. I think they want to burn Montgomery all the way through the first 9 or 10 games of the season. Then when it comes stretch run time, they're going to let loose and let the young guy roll. But it's still,
especially if you could move him before the deadline, then that wouldn't give you till 9 weeks. That would give you till about 6 or 7, maybe. But
yeah,
it could be out there.
Yeah.
Are you as hyped as I am for this early slate of games coming up on Sunday? It's obviously headlined by the Dolphins and the Bills, and I'm personally intrigued by the Ravens and the Browns this weekend.
Yeah, that Ravens Browns game should be good. That Bears Broncos game should be absolute trash.
Oh yeah, um,
That's a
let's. Hey, I don't know if John Bull's listening. Let's go Bears! Come on, man.
let's go John Bull. John Bull gets so much love on this show and the insiders just because he's a Bears guy for no other reason.
No,
Although,
John
yeah,
Bull gets love for a lot of reasons.
I will say, yeah, John Bull also like he and I share an affinity for Nightmare Before Christmas, and we both went out and we communicated about this. We went out and bought the 13-foot Jack the Skeleton King,
So I'll
which
take a
I've got to
picture
build.
of this. I thought of you and John because I know you guys share this.
Yeah.
And there's this house that I walk by that always is extremely decorated at Halloween time. I assume this is what you're referring to. There is a massive, massive skeleton outside their house right now holding a sign that says Halloween is coming. And
Okay.
that's their decoration outside their house right now.
So you can get a giant like 13 or 15-foot skeleton. What I'm talking about is we got a 13-foot Jack the Skeleton King from Nightmare Before Christmas. And he's animated and his mouth moves and his hands move and he sings songs and he's lit.
All right.
He has
Well,
yeah,
when that
so
thing comes alive when you're asleep, don't come calling me.
yeah, so we both have they had like a 6'6" version of it, which both of us have. And then we both have Sally, who is his girlfriend in the film. And then we also I have Oogie Boogie, who is the bad guy. So I have him. He's huge too, but he's not super tall. Now we have a 13-foot tall guy. And the cool thing about these, you'll remember because you came up. Um, because it's the Nightmare Before Christmas, we go straight from Halloween and we transition them to Christmas decorations. We put like Santa hats on them and stuff, and we keep them up all the way through. So like at my house, we as part of like the Christmas party and the decorations, we have these giant characters up too. No,
They're both Halloween decorations and Christmas decorations. And
yeah, they're like we dual purpose them.
I just want to make sure I have this. This you said this, but you kind of glossed over it, and I want to make sure we just revert back to this real quick. You have a 13-foot skeleton,
Yep.
but you also have a 6'6" skeleton.
Well, we're replacing the 6'6" one now with the 13-footer because the 13-footer just came out this year. This is the first year for him.
You have it.
Oh, yeah, I have it.
So they're both in your home right now.
Well, I haven't built them and put them outside yet, but yes, I have them.
All right. All right. James Ham has 20 feet of skeleton in his house.
I do.
It's
just like the Sacramento Kings have like 42 foot of center. Yeah.
How did we? Oh, John Bull, Bears Broncos.
John
Got
Bull,
it. There it
Bears
is.
Broncos
Bears, Broncos.
beats
Yeah.
Battlestar Galactica.
Thank you.
Away we go.
Thank you. And away we go. There's also this is an early game. I didn't realize this was an early one. Bucks Saints. I'm interested in that too because it looks like Derek Carr was a go. Derek Carr flashed on my screen a minute ago. I thought that was to say he was good to go this weekend, but I might have missed that. I'm not down on the Bucks yet. I didn't expect them to win on Monday. I'm not completely out on the Bucks, but I'm not out on the Bucks at all. I want to see what they get done against your guys' beloved Saints. Y'all won't stop talking about the Saints winning that division. Let's see what the Bucks can do this weekend.
Yeah, what is the early game? Isn't there the London
the Toy
game?
Story game? Yeah, the Toy Story game. It's
I'm
the Falcons.
Excited. I want to see the Toy Story game. I want to see what they do. That seems cool.
Yeah, are you going to get up at 6:30 to watch it?
I don't know. Maybe. So, like, I've never been able to get my 16-year-old into football, but he's big into, Disney and all the Pixar stuff and all that. Maybe he'd watch that and we'd have a good time sitting there watching it.
I do want to see how they pull this off. I'm
I do
very
too.
curious. Yeah, I'm very
Yeah.
curious. They hit a home run with the Nickelodeon stuff. That just got rave reviews. I peeked in on it a few times. Thought it was really good. It was really really clever. They took a product that had been presented one way for decades and presented it in an entirely different way. And now they're trying to do it again. And I'm not against it, especially when it's the Falcons and Jaguars in Atlanta
Yeah,
or
that's
in London. Excuse me.
in London. Yeah, I mean, I don't think I'd normally watch that game at all,
No.
especially the way that Drake London has let my fantasy football team down. But yeah, I'm game. I think I might get up and watch it. I know we've got to get up early tomorrow and watch Man U. I think they have an 8 a.m. game on Saturday, which is
Oh,
not
you
great.
are really into this soccer thing now.
Oh, I've watched soccer for a long time, but
Well, yeah,
not
but
anymore.
now when you start setting alarm clocks for it, that's different.
Yeah, it is a little different. We like to hang out on Saturdays, and I think the term to just lay around in bed all day is called Herkel Durkel. I don't know if you've heard this term, but there's actually I think it's like a Swedish term. Like you like Herkel Durkel and hang out in bed all day. Just like lay around. Especially after a long week. Now Damien's like
No, it's great. No, because you said earlier, and this is what makes life great. Is there's two shows on ESPN 1320, and they couldn't be more different. The Insiders with James and Kyle, and then D'Lo and KC.
well, and Kyle's up for a good Herkel Durkel. Just saying.
I ain't gonna. I'm
You
not
guys
gonna.
need to Google it. It's a
I'm
thing.
I'm not gonna speak to what Kyle does with his personal time. We have
Uh,
we have the two worst coaches in the NFL going at it. Unfortunately, one of them involves a team that many in our area love, and that is the Raiders at the Chargers. Obviously, I'll be tuned into that one. I'll probably have a stiff glass of tequila with me, but I'll tune in. That's in the late slate where the 49ers and Raiders both play in that second run, with the Raiders and Chargers kicking off at 4:45, and then the Cardinals and the 49ers will be at 4:25. Not a super intriguing block of late games, which will be good for us because we can tap into the 49ers and the Raiders and see what they're doing.
I'm just kind of like I firmly believe that the Raiders are just gonna get like stomped. Like
Oh, so
like they just feel like they're
I
right
kind
there,
of feel
don't
that.
they?
Yeah, no, I kind of feel the same way because there's a lot of flaws with that Los Angeles team,
Oh, sure
but
there
their
are.
their 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 offense is capable, and I think that's why a lot of people were kind of in on them. Their offense is very capable. Justin Herbert's one of those darlings right now. Given one of the biggest issues with the Las Vegas Raiders this year has been that defense. Yeah, this could be bad. James is looking at the comments and trying not to laugh because they're making a bunch of Herkel Durkel jokes. Like I can see it. James is trying
They've lost
desperately
their
not to
mind.
laugh at the chatty house and pretend like he's listening to what I'm saying, but he's enjoying the Herkel Durkel conversation that is going over in the stream.
What I love is that by Monday, everyone will have like looked it up and then tried it and then been like, "Oh yeah, this is what we did all weekend."
James,
We-
I don't know if you know what this conversation sounds like.
Who doesn't love some Harkle Durkle on the weekend?
That's right.
He said you're gonna look it up. You're gonna try it. Come on, man.
Just call it relaxing,
We
bro.
are not
Just call it relaxing.
Oh.
we are not mature enough for this. Come on, Hammer.
Oh, amazing. It's been a
Yeah.
long week. It has been a
Yes, it
long
has.
week.
Yes, it has.
Like getting off a plane, like not really getting a moment to catch your breath and then starting the next morning back to work. It's been a little wild and then it just doesn't seem to end, right? Like I think we're walking into the season exhausted and that's never a good thing. Like
Nah, it'll be fine because you'll get hit with a rush of adrenaline when you walk into that media day on Monday. I'm quite
Probably.
positive. And if it's not Monday, and I think it will be, it'll definitely be Tuesday when you hear the sneakers and the basketballs and all of that different stuff, and then
Squeak. Yep.
then you'll be ready to do what you do.
That's always the best. Like the squeaking of the shoes and the ball bouncing off the court. That's always when you like, oh, it's basketball time. Like I love that part. Like even like media day is like the first day of school. Everyone shows up and everyone's dressed nice, and they get their new clothes, their back to school clothes on.
Every
And
news
then
anchor is going to have the freshest haircut of the year.
yeah, totally. And then you get to Tuesday, and it used to be by like Thursday, there's like two of us left, like maybe three. But now like the workforce is like improved. There's more people around. So I think we'll have a packed house. I think there's so much excitement about this season, and people are gonna be, lining up to cover this team and to be all in on this team. So like I
Oh
don't know
yeah,
about you.
that's a
Yeah.
good point. Yeah, shout out to all the one-timers who are coming through this weekend. Shout
Yeah.
out to all the people who are coming through pretending like they covered the Sacramento Kings. They'll show up at media day and then they'll skip out and they'll be here for the Warriors and the Lakers, and then we won't see them again for a month. No, shout out to y'all.
Exactly. Yeah, there's that, and even like the nice one-on-ones they give during the off season, and then those people don't show up to like when you sign Sasha Bazenka. Like, all right, we got you. Not
Uh,
that we're keeping score or anything.
we don't do that. We're not
Not
petty here on this show at
uh,
all.
yeah.
Jacob Z wants to know, James, will you ask De'Aaron at Media Day if he had time to Herkel Durkel over the summer?
Yeah, I will. I'm sure he has. He looks like a guy who just like likes to chill.
Rob Dub said, I tried to get my wife to Herkel Durkel with me, but she said she was too tired.
Yeah. Good luck with that. Sorry, Rob W.
Keep working on that, Rob Dub. You'll get there. You'll get there. I'm with you though on the Chargers. I do not like this game whatsoever for the Raiders. I'm super down. 3 weeks ago, I was okay with the Raiders. I didn't love it. I didn't. I thought I think 3 wins was the prediction we kept going to from USA. I thought that was ridiculous. I'm so out on them right now, and so much of it is because all of it might be because of Josh McDaniels. I'm just completely out on the Raiders right now.
Like we went off on it the other day. Like, was it? Do they play on Monday? They play on Sunday night. They
Oh, they
they
played the
played
they played the Steelers on Monday.
Monday,
No, Sunday night. Yeah, Sunday
Sunday
night.
night,
The
Sunday
Steelers
night.
on Sunday
Yeah.
night.
So it was like the big deal, right? And like I, I went off a bit, and I was surprised that I had such strong feelings because I'm usually ambivalent about the Raiders, but I was so frustrated watching like the inability for a head coach to actually count and understand that like his team could tie the game with 8 points and they didn't need a field goal with 3
Oh,
minutes and 11 seconds left, and then they get a penalty, and then he kicks it again with like 2:25 left, and you're just thinking, do you not know what it is that like this means and like what points are in the NFL? Like how do you, like I don't understand. Like if a basketball coach draws up a play for a 2-point play with 1 second on the clock, but your team is down 3, then you lose the game. And for him to like completely go out of left field and line up for a field goal, like what are you doing? What is happening here? And then I actually like I called an NFL head coach a moron on the air, which I didn't think I would ever do, but then,
go
of course, our friends here, they clipped it and they threw it on social media. So now I'm calling an NFL head coach a moron all over the place. And I thought to myself, he was like, I still
Oh,
can't
no,
get
that was
over it.
awful. Yeah, that was awful.
Like, get the
It
man an abacus. Like,
it
like
it
help the
was
guy out. Like,
it was so it was so arrogant. It was I know football better than you. And this is why, and we needed 2 possessions. Like, come on, man. If you were there's a variety of different scenarios. I still wouldn't have done it. but there's a variety of different scenarios where a field goal would have made sense. The scenario he was in was not one of them, because even if the field goal goes through, let's say a miracle happens and you get the ball back, you're still down 5. You still have to score a touchdown. You've got to score a touchdown either way. It's not like you cut it and now it's just a field goal game. It's a 5-point game. But, Josh McDaniels knows football better than we do.
You had 2 opportunities at least to score 8 points. So that's how I look at it. Like, you could have gone for the touchdown. If you don't get the touchdown, you turn the ball over, but you turn the ball over at a minimum, if you don't get any yards on the last play, at the 8-yard line. That's a minimum.
Right.
So what if what if your defense does hold and you're able to force a punt? Now they're punting out of the back of their end zone. So not only did you have the initial opportunity to go for 6 and then potentially tie it with a 2-point conversion, but on top of that, if you missed, you had the opportunity to potentially get the ball back at the 45 or the 50 or the 40 of the other side, and then have another opportunity to go for the 6 if you missed it the first time. Like, I don't understand the logic at all. Like, there is no mathematical equation that you're going to convince me was the right one in that situation. Like, a couple of years ago, like 10 years ago, when there was no 2-point conversion, sure, you're right.
Sure.
You needed 2 possessions. That's not where we were.
It's 2023, guy. It's 2023. I don't see the Raiders winning this game, and I'm actually with you. I could see the Chargers getting their offense in a bit of a flow here. You worried at all about this Cardinals game? They've played really well the last 3 weeks. Obviously, beat up the Dallas Cowboys over the weekend, and 49ers fans concerned. They got the Cowboys next week. You're hearing the term trap game a lot. Any concern about that one for San Francisco?
I don't have any concerns. I think the 49ers are a much, much better team, and they're very prepared, and they don't seem to be overlooking anyone. And I thought they would go 4-0 to start the season with or without Nick Bosa in the beginning. And I still think they're going 4-0, and I even think they'll cover the crazy 14-point spread, or that's what it was. But yeah, I don't think that they don't take anyone lightly at this point. I think that they'll be just fine.
Yeah, I think the wake-up call for them, I don't think they needed it. I don't think they needed a wake-up call. There's nothing they've done to imply that they need a wake-up call. But I think if they were feeling any type of way about this Arizona Cardinals team, it changed when they beat up the Dallas Cowboys. And if nothing else, the Cardinals have the 49ers' attention. And Kyle Shanahan, I think, has done a great job this week of making sure the Cardinals should have your attention. He's pointed out how well they've played. I'm with you I hate the spread. It feels high, but I threw this at Kyle earlier. The Cardinals have only scored 7 points in the fourth quarter. It was last week. That was the only time they scored against Dallas. So the 49ers may have an opportunity to open that game up